Alright everyone, I've mentioned it in passing, but I wanted to do a dedicated video on the stupidity that is Elizabeth Warren's college tuition forgiveness or debt forgiveness plan, whatever you want to refer to it, for those of us who have college debt. Prefaced, of course, on the fact that I do have several tens of thousands of college debt. I'm managing to pay it down, but I also know what it is like to be too poor to pay it down. Trust me, I've been in the same boat I was for years. Not being able to make payments, or being able to make not entire payments, and fucking forbearances, and dealing with interest on the loans accruing, making you feel more and more stressed. Then I've dealt with, sort of just making the minimums, and now, of course, I can pay more than I actually need each month, and I'm paying down over time that debt. So I'm not doing this from a detached perspective. I'm doing this from the perspective of someone who knows how it's like to get screwed by the student loan services, number one, and number two, to be offered, which is, and Warren is offering this to me, to subsidize in some way through other people's taxpayers' money to get rid of my student loan debt. Now, of course, you could implement a program where it's only for people who are never going to be able to pay it back, like the lower income echelons. You could scale it or something. I don't support that either, and I wouldn't have supported it even when I was dirt poor. I'll tell you why I don't support the idea of student debt forgiveness. I do believe that if a person is they currently have a thing in place where after I think it's like 10 years of making payments, the government is willing to write off certain debt. It'll be counted as income, but it will write it off, forcing you to pay a lower overall total, because it's like, depending on what bracket you're in, it might be 5 or 10% of the total or something that you have to pay. Much easier to deal with. I agree with that. I think that system is merciful. You have to pay for 10 years and make those payments continuously, but you can get your debt written off. Now, I don't think you have to. I think it's an option for you at that time. Like, I probably wouldn't even bother, because then it goes into an upper income bracket, especially with the fucking self-employment rate and everything. But here's why I don't support Elizabeth Warren's idea. Number one, it would be fundamentally asking the government to be benevolent, like to implement it in a proper way. I don't trust government to do that. Certainly not somebody like Elizabeth Warren. So it would be haphazard, inept. I guarantee it would go before Congress. And let's say that you are an Elizabeth Warren fan. Let's say that you think that she's got her head screwed on right. I don't, but okay, you've been taken in by her bait, her free shit diatribe, which is basically just, hey, I'm the female Bernie Sanders at this point. I think he's spoken of the same fucking shit too. So let's say that you take it seriously. You trust her to implement such a program. Do you trust the people in Congress to do the same? To implement it and not put a bunch of riders on it? So, oh yeah, but some of this money will go for this, and there'll be certain qualifications, like, we're going to give more money to people of a certain skin color, some weird shit like that. Of course they would. They'll tinker around with it. 6 months later, you'll get something that'll be 10,000 pages long, and the fundamental core of it won't even have anything to do with student loan debt forgiveness anymore. That's the problem. Paired with this is her idea to make college tuition free. I've got a better idea, because that would just cause the cost to skyrocket. I've got a much better idea. Get the government out of higher education altogether. No, the federal government, state government shouldn't even do the loan thing. They should let private companies handle it. Why? Because the free market will literally attempt to compensate for things. It was before. Our college system in this country was pretty damn great many decades ago when it was more or less completely privatized. What caused the cost to rise? Oh, the government said, well, it's too costly. We're going to give these colleges money on behalf of students. We're going to give these students money to lower cost. Basically, if you've got any, if you're meritorious at all, you'll be able to get this money. You'll be able to get a grant. The problem is, once the colleges got that, they said, oh, well, we can admit this student, low risk, no problem. We're not the ones handling the money. Said, we're going to raise tuition. Yeah, we want them to be able to pay a little bit. We think that that's a good idea. So they kept raising tuition time and time again. The government got involved, and the cost got higher. Wow, it's almost like this is a natural reaction to the fact that you've taken something that should be privatized and put it in public hands. It's not a good idea, and it's not, by the way, charitable at all. The government doesn't magically make that money. It can print money while stealing from everyone through inflation. That's basically the only alternative other than a direct tax. So no, I'm not taken in by the bait. I don't want to see America's educational system, which already has enough problems with government oversight and bureaucrats and all sorts of bullshit like that, and like encouraging these schools to teach things that are stupid, like the diversity courses and bullshit like that. People are going there, like when I was in college, And I was like, well, I have to take this program called CALS, and it's like, it's like public speaking and computer science and weird shit like that I don't give a shit about. I don't use it in my day-to-day life. Okay, I do, public speaking technically, but that course didn't help me. I skipped out on the final sort of speech thing. I'm like, well, my card's going to be up here. I'm just going to fucking skip the next week of classes. I don't want to have to fucking deal with it. Ended up getting like a Mercy B or something like that. I think I got a B- in the course. All the other shit I did fine. Got an A on developing that shitty-ass text-only website there, which was pretty funny. No, but I had to take that, and it's like, well, you've got to have a certain number of credits in, one of the following. It's like, African-American history stuff, or black literature, or feminist literature, and stuff like that. It's like, why? Why do these courses even exist? They're not of any importance to anyone. Not unless you want to be part of that like weird ivory tower echo chamber and pretend to be important because you reanalyze the same book people have done 100 times. Well, that's not original thinking. You're just basically being told what to think and memorizing it. Huzzah, you're average, roughly. That's basically what college exists for in some cases anyway. If Elizabeth Warren's plan were implemented, it would be inefficient, therefore, number one. It would be costly, and I consider it immoral. Yes, I would consider it immoral to force the taxpayers of this country to give me tens of thousands of dollars because I happen to have taken out student loans. And again, I know what it's like to understand. I understand that these are predatory companies in many respects. They prey on people that are, they're too young to drink, and yet they're signing off for tens of thousands of dollars of debt. That's really what it boils down to. Well, you're not allowed to, the Democrats are like, well, you shouldn't even be able to own a gun. You shouldn't be able to fuck. You shouldn't be able to do any of these cool things, or smoke, or do anything. You shouldn't be able to drink. But you can take out enough debt to drown an elephant. You can take out enough debt to ruin your life, potentially, if you should fail, which, statistically a lot of people will. They'll drop out and they'll have all of this debt. I'm very lucky because I was one of those dropouts and I found my own niche. Okay, well, I'm one of the lucky ones, and trust me, I am aware of that fact every single day. But that doesn't mean that the answer is, well, write off everyone's debt. Well, the government can't just say, well, the debt's magically gone. These private companies don't get jack shit. They're going to have to bail it out, which means a lot of inflation. I can't imagine how many trillions of dollars of added inflation would be necessary if you didn't want to do this based on a tax. And you know that with the Democrats, they're basically looking for ways to fuck with the tax code. You look, like with Bernie Sanders' free healthcare bullshit, which is also a lie. The only way the numbers add up to any form of savings or even a zero-sum game is with a massive tax increase. It's basically just an effort to raise taxes on productive elements of society. They don't tell you that that'll extend well down into the middle and working class, by the way. It's a lie. It's a lie by omission. Bernie Sanders wants to raise taxes, so he's like, well, I'll give people free shit, and I'll package it up with this tax increase to sort of hide the fact that it's there. That's all it's about, and it'll be crummy healthcare that won't apply to everyone anyway. It won't be universal, it won't be efficient, it'll cost more, and it'll fall apart, and eventually we'll probably have to repeal it if we have the wherewithal to do so, or we'll stagger along with that extra debt. The same thing is true of free college. There's no such thing as a free ride. Capitalism rules everything with an iron fist. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. Evolution favors it over this collectivist bullshit mentality. You can package that shit up in all sorts of ribbons and bows and give it cute, family-friendly sounding names. Free healthcare, free college for all. He. Yes, and what happens when some total moron who is never going to be able to pass their courses then says, well, the college can't say no to me. I'm just as good as anyone else. There's free college. Are you going to base it on merit admissions, or are you going to have a lottery of some sort? Or are you going to build a lot of really shitty substandard schools and expand those and throw even more money into the education system to give worthless degrees to people who fundamentally should not be in a college? By the way, if they can go and they can get 4 years of free schooling or 2 years of free schooling or whatever Warren has in mind and take something that would be quote-unquote easy, like, well, I'm going to take English literature or something. Not frowning on English. I mean, I edit for a living, but, it's not manual labor. Why would they want to go off and do, carpentry or electrician work or something where they bust ass? Oh, I want to be the line worker or something like that. What was that song about some dude who works on electric lines? It's from the 70s. It was one of those sappy blue-collar ballad songs. Sort of predates the Springsteen era. Which, by the way, I hate Bruce Springsteen. Fuck him. I'm a working class man with my mansion. It's a working class mansion. It has a lot of spam in the fridge. No, it's sort of like a Billy Joel thing going on there. Elizabeth Warren doesn't even know what it's like to be a normal person. How the fuck can I trust her to implement such a program? And by the way, like, let's say there was a President Warren, it's not going to get implemented anyway unless the Republicans stand aside. They're probably going to retake the House. They're going to maintain almost certainly control of the Senate. The alternative is you'd have one-party rule. You'd have a real weird agenda at that point. Talk about obstruction. Yeah, Joe Manchin would definitely be getting a lot of money from the GOP at that point. That'd be quite something. Now, fuck Elizabeth Warren and her free stuff shit. I'm not taking it at all. Some people might be. Trust me, it's a lure. It's a scam. That's all it is. The government wants to get bigger and more powerful and take more of your money and strangulate the economy more and throw it to multinational firms and to the super rich. And I don't mean like 1%. No. It's not the 1%, dude. It's the 100th of 1%. Those are the people that Elizabeth Warren has stuff in common with. That's about all. Peace out.